I'm joined this week, to start with, by David Mowat from the aSALT course. But David, this is not your average kind of army-type aSALT course. You're not going to get muddy or bruised, we hope.
Well, you might get muddy on an allotment. I suppose you could get bruised by falling over a plant pot. But it's not that kind of aSALT course, no. But the pun is intended. This aSALT is a SALT course, and SALT, S-A-L-T, stands for Spiritual Activist Leadership Training. The spiritual bit is not about contacting your granny in a sort of different sort of church.
You're not spiritualists, then?
We're not spiritualists, no. It's spiritual in the sense of trying to avoid the R word, the religious. It's finding something that underpins a lot of people's attitudes to life, something mysterious, something connecting. Some people are pagans, some people are Buddhists, and some people are atheists, but have a deep sort of intuitive take on life. So it's about finding that which sustains activism. And
but it sounds religious, though. I mean, what you're saying, to me, just sounds religious. What do you mean when you say it's not religious, or you're actually against the R word? What does that mean?
The emphasis is on the activism, is on political activists. But in my experience, I don't know about you, Tony, I've often been in situations where I've fought a campaign with my own ego, or simply on a political level, and I find that by drawing on deeper resources than I have myself as an individual, I can sustain what I do. I can keep coming at something from a place of joy and hope rather than sort of despair and anger.
So are you talking about a sort of Jesus or Gandhi figure rather than the actual, the sort of, when you say religion, you tend to think of a sort of church building or the rules of the church, that kind of thing?
Yes, certainly not institutional church, but in our society, people have found their own ways to having a set of values that sustain them. Some people just meditate. On this current cohort, there is someone who has been a lifelong adherent of transcendental meditation. That's his thing. In previous courses, there have been Buddhists, Jews, atheists. In my case, I'm a Quaker. And that was something that helped me through a difficult moment when I was working in the occupied territories in Palestine.
Now, for a lot of people, the spiritual side comes when adversity comes into their life. But that's not necessarily the greatest introduction to spirituality, is it?
No, it reminds me of someone who used to call himself a nighttime Catholic. He was raised a Catholic, and he only went back to it in a crisis. No, that's not the best way. Best way is to have some kind of practice, whether in good times or bad times, that keeps people going. In recent years, I've been jogging regularly in the morning, or as a musician, I practiced my trumpet, and that's maybe just on a physical level that keeps me going, keeps my breathing and sort of body intact. And
well, you know what? It's almost an act of faith, isn't it? Because especially practicing something, it's almost like it's very difficult to get through sometimes to young people how valuable that can be because they can't see any kind of immediate result.
Yeah, it's sort of a bit of a paradox because there isn't an immediate result. You're doing something that isn't about getting a result tomorrow, but at the same time, there is immediate benefit from if I practice my trumpet in the morning for half an hour, I have got a good attitude buzz about the day. It does physically help me through the day. I mean, it's a very physical thing.
Good exercise for your lungs too, David.
It's good exercise for my lungs. It's the sound. I play long notes, slurry. It's deadly boring for my neighbours.
It wakes them up. What time do you do it? 7 a.m?
I don't. No. Don't. I would not say where I live in case they come and get me. No, so I only start about 9 in the morning. So there you go. I'm one of those activists that don't start the day, in the early hours plotting my campaign. I'm fairly civilised in the way I do things.
Okay, so how does this fit into what actually happens on the aSALT course?
Well, everyone comes with their own need, agenda, campaign, project. For example, we have people interested so far this year. A couple of people are very into supporting Palestine, solidarity with Palestinians. Someone else, as I already described, is into transcendental meditation, and he seems to be, from talking to him, a connector, a catalyst who brings people together. In fact, he calls himself the whistling catalyst because he enjoys it so much, and he goes away with a whistle when two people connect who wouldn't otherwise have done. Someone else I don't know much about yet, but she's a Quaker from North Somerset. And she's told me a bit about a food co-op that she was trying to start up. Someone else wants to start up a social enterprise for creators. Everyone's got their own project. Activism is very broadly defined.
It's very difficult, though, I think, in the current climate with austerity and adversity, actually, to persuade people that it's worthwhile. It sometimes seems that even though activism of all sorts is probably more necessary in a difficult social climate, that actually it's difficult to get the morale up to want to do it and to see, to actually believe in yourself that you can see it through.
Well, as a wise person once said, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. And I'm finding by putting the word out through Facebook, word of mouth, emails, texting, I'm finding the people who are interested and can already see the point. Other people, it's up to them. I'm not in the business of trying to persuade people. I'm in the business of communicating to people who have a yen for doing something, who are already stuck in and can see the danger of getting burnt out. That's the core thing. It's for people who are engaged in change work, who realise the risks of being isolated, getting burnt out, followed by depression, followed by some other, going away from it for a while and then getting back in for the next fix, the next adrenaline rush. Because we're in this game for the long term. Activism, as someone once said, is really, it's real democracy, it's deep democracy, it's actively making sure the bare mechanics at which we've got in this country and elsewhere actually function, actually turn round, so that people are really engaged as people, as citizens, with each other, with local authorities, with governments, and internationally. And that's the purpose of it, is to help sustain, help nurture activism.
Well, let's get down to brass tacks, because everything costs something. How much is this going to cost people if they're interested? And where are you getting any help with funding, that sort of thing?
Well, as of today, I've just been given the all clear by the SCHUMACHER INSTITUTE, which is the host organisation, to set up a bursary fund. So my next step is to ask for perhaps yesterday's activists who are slightly better off to be, who's sympathetic with what I'm trying to do, and who can set up who can contribute to a bursary fund. And the Schumacher Institute is a registered charity. It can accept gift aid, and that way I will be able to subsidise activists who are hard up. And there's a number of people who've shown interest in this, but just like you're implying, they've said we can't afford it. The current charge for the year is £600 for a year, which translates into one meeting a month, but with mentoring and support. So if I take on a group, I'm a kind of facilitator and mentor to those people through the year, so that we meet together, but I will also assist in between times as well. It's like being a sort of, a godparent or a friend to them for their journey through that year, as they focus on their goals and sustaining themselves and sharing their ideas with the group.
Yeah, but for a lot of people who may have a lot of zeal to get involved, £600 is a lot of money. That's
exactly right. So having aimed to start this coming weekend, which is why I'm here, as of today, I had to make the decision. There's been some pre-meetings, so I couldn't make the decision until I had a clear picture. I've made the decision to delay the start for a month, which will be the 23rd of February. It's a Sunday evening, and use that time to set up this bursary fund through my contacts, through the Quakers, for example, through other groups, to set up a fund so that it won't cost £600 for those who need that support. It's a case of those who can afford to pay and those who can't but really want to do it will find a way to help them do the course.
Okay, for £600 or less, if you can manage it. You're saying Sunday evenings. When are your meetings taking place each week, and where?
They're taking place once a month at the end of the month. 23rd of February, Sunday evening is the beginning, but then it's all day Monday, and that's the pattern each time. It's always a Sunday evening to have a share around, shared food, get together, and then Monday is a packed day with a mixture of sessions that people run themselves. Some sessions I run. Sometimes it's about practical work on an allotment, because that's partly what sustains people. It's also about shared spiritual practices. Some people might offer meditation, other people something else, some creative approaches as well. And it takes place, at least the initial and meeting point will be the Palestine Museum in Broad Street in Bristol, which is above a venue known as the Arc Bar, which has been around for a few years.
That's on Broad Street, isn't it?
It's in Broad Street. All the details are on the Schumacher Institute website.
Okay. Now, this isn't the first SALT course you've run.
No, I've run it several times before, and it went well, but it wasn't sustainable because I couldn't afford to keep going, basically, at the time. We got to a point where no one was paying anything, which was great at the time, but I then had to get on and with my self-employment, with my freelance work, and I couldn't sustain it. So I've reintroduced a more conventional element, which is money, because I need it to be able to sustain this sort of work and give it my time. Now,
give us some examples of where people have gone or on to do things that they've gone on to do after your previous courses.
Well, for example, Marion Connolly, who has been very involved in Palestinian Solidarity campaign, became the chair of the group for a while and became a director of East Side Roots in Easton. Someone else was very new to astrology when he joined the course and tested out various ideas with us. He's now a leading astrologer living in Glastonbury. By the end of it, there's a very strong group of people who care for each other, look out for each other, give each other critical feedback. It's not just a nice, fluffy thing. People, there's been conflict in the group. There's one woman who went on to be a mentor for others, and I remember her and other participants. I haven't discussed it with them, so I can't reveal their names. But I remember them really having quite a lot of conflict in the group. And one of them told me afterwards that she learnt the value of conflict, that it's something that you can contain and learn from, and it wasn't just a problem. And she's applied that in her work subsequently.
Well, because people avoid conflict, don't they? This is the thing, and sometimes that conflict's necessary for them to move on. I mean, it may be to do with being bullied at work, this kind of thing. There's all sorts of reasons why conflict actually can have a positive side to it. So please, folks, don't always see differences of opinion as a bad thing. In fact, I think, if someone like a newspaper editor, if we can go to that level in this discussion, they should be having all sorts of different opinions and not be afraid to have on the same page of a newspaper two completely opposing views. And opposing views can actually be a real catalyst for change, which is obviously one of the things you're after. Okay, finally, just give us a dip into the sort of Monday. Give us an idea of what, if I was to be a fly on the wall one Monday on the SALT course, what would I be seeing?
You'd be seeing, in the morning, 3 sessions of roughly an hour each with energizers in between, which were led by the different participants. So, for example, I might do something on a technique or a piece of theory around activism that related, in my judgment, to a number of the campaigns or work that the participants were doing. Someone else might lead a session where they were testing something that they were going to try out in real life in their activism in a week or two hence.
Sort of role play.
It's sort of role play. They were trying it out on us to see our feedback, and then they would tweak it and refine it and apply it. Or someone else might be evaluating something that didn't go very well, and they want to find out in a safe space why that was. So we would be giving critical feedback and suggestions. That's helpful. Then we'd have a shared lunch, and then we'd go off to the allotments, which is really important part of the work, because one of the things that happens with activists, we go off in our heads, we live a kind of accelerated life, and forget that we're part of a natural cycle as human animals, as creatures. We need to relate to the natural cycle. There's a natural time to do things and a time not to do things. Sometimes things need to seem to be dead and buried for a while, until after a while, miraculously, you get new growth.
Well, we've just heard this week in the news about night workers, their body clock absolutely destroying a lot of their body chemistry if they're having to work at night time.
Yeah.
It just isn't the way we were designed.
Absolutely. So by working on an allotment, it's not about learning how to do gardening. It's more being in that environment and having discussions with each other as we're weeding or composting, whatever it is.
Conflict over what should be planted where.
Yeah, it could well be. It could well be. And somewhat disingenuously, I'm offering my my allotment. Of course, what I'm going to get out of it is a bunch of people who are going to help make it happen.
And some leaks, maybe.
Yeah, it's some leaks of all kinds on the compost heap and planted, and we all get to share the produce.
Well, there's something very primal in a weird way about an allotment. I mean, it might sound silly, but I mean, I think all of us would like to have a bit of land to grow a little bit of something on, even if it's a tree to plant when we're younger, to see it grow as we get older, and to have maybe a little bit of a mixture of perennial and annual plants to nurture. The tragedy, of course, is that most people actually nowadays do not have a piece of land they can call their own, somewhere that they can grow and nurture, because we're living in this kind of rent economy. So the situation is actually it's making life difficult for us. I mean, we've had all the discussions again in the news this week about the pressures on young people nowadays. We've got something like 1.2 million unemployed between the ages of 16 and 25 now, and this is really taking its toll on mental health.
Absolutely. It's a very healthy... When I go to the allotment, I find, just for myself, it's a very healthy place to be, to actually listen to some bird song, and the pride I have when I come back with my 3 or 4 slightly diminutive beetroots, back to my wife and toddler. It's a proud moment. I love it. And if I've got a surplus of lettuce, it's great to be able to give a few to neighbours. So yeah, it's a really healthy place to be. Just to have your hands in earth, even before things have started growing.
Well, it's a start of what I think we're going to need in the future at some point, David, because we're living in a world with little food security. I mean, the whole supermarket system can't last forever. And we've got 55, roughly 60 million acres of land in Britain, and around about the same number of people. So at some point, these big landowners like the Duke of Westminster, I think, are going to have to give up some of their property.
Absolutely. And do you remember in I think it was in 2000 when the oil tanker drivers went on strike, and food supplies in many supermarkets were perishly low, to close to running out. And that's exactly the reason for this sort of course, because my vision is, it's also an educational model, you see. My vision is, rather than depending on these massive institutions that seem to have overnight opted for a money-based maximum, let's get the maximum out of these consumer students that we're allowed, seem to kind of overnight go on the dark side, all these universities one after the other. This is another way of doing education. Critical, deep, thorough-based learning, but we do it for each other. We don't need the professor with a string of letters to do it in a big 60s, type institution off on some campus and pay loads of money for it. We can do it for each other. And as you say exactly, that's right. We'll need to, because we need that kind of resilience, resourcefulness, flexibility, and reflection on all the things you're talking about. It's about reflecting on real life and bringing that into these Mondays. We've got a bit of space outside. activism. If you just have activism after activism, you burn out. That's my personal experience. But a bit of space, some support and some care for each other, and we can sustain what we do and show people a model of how to do things.
And also, if you talk about it as around about £10 or £12 a week, it doesn't sound quite so much.
That's right.
So anyway, tell us how to get in touch with you if people are interested in finding out more about the course.
Well, the first thing I'd suggest is to go onto the www.SCHUMACHER Institute, all one word, .org.uk/aSALT, aSALT. Otherwise, you can ring me. I'm actually, you just Google my name, you'd bound to find my details. I'm pretty much out.
Okay,
there.
David Mowat. You better spell your second name in.
Mowat.
Okay, David. Just finally remind us of the website and. Good luck with your course. It'd be interesting, maybe if you could come back in a year's time and tell us how you got on with it, or even if you'd like to come along at some point between now and a year's time, if you want, and we can have a chat to some of your activists if you'd like us to.
Fantastic! I'm all for spreading this model. It's very low tech, reproducible, systems based. This is the thing that Schumacher contribute to it. That they're very good on systems thinking. I've not the place to go into it, but I'm sure in one of your future programmes, Tony, you'd be...
Come on, tell us, what is systems thinking?
Systems thinking, my goodness, you've put me on the spot now. It's about being and doing several different things all at once and finding that the result is more than the sum of the parts. I mean, that's one of the things. It's synergy, which means we're more than the sum of the parts.
Force multiplication.
False multiplication.
Have you not heard of that? That's one word I've heard that described.
Oh, right.
If you've got 2 or 3 people all working on the same project, that actually they seem to manage to do 10 times the work of one person somehow. But it's just the way human beings are made.
Yeah, it is. It's our brains are systems based. They're networked. They're not about having chains of command from one end to the other end. I am thirsty. But the other end, I pick up a glass and I drink. It's far more complex and immediate than that with systems thinking. Systems thinking is merely thinking which is beginning to understand the way nature, the way systems, ecosystems work, the complexity of interaction. At the heart of it is mystery. We don't know how these things work, but it's about trusting that a multiplicity of approaches, of values, of leaders, if you like, initiatives, can come up with something creative and sort of that works.
Okay, well,
that's a rather vague
It sounds
description.
vague, but it makes a lot of sense. Listen, I'll just reread the website out if people are online. That's for the Schumacher Institute. That's SCHUMACHER Institute, INSTITUTE.org.uk/aSALT, aSALT. The course Nourishment for Change Agents. Who's it for is its title, and you'll see far more information on there, including contact details for David. That is Big Bromo, BIG on email, BROMO, Big Brother Mowat, is that?
That's right.
The easiest way to remember it.
Yeah.
Or you can ring or text 07804 363 170. That's 07804 363 170. David, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tony, for having me. Thank you.
You're listening to dialectradio.co.uk.